the dam issue, the issue of the dam. The DAM issue is one that, as you've gathered, is highly politicized. It raises a lot of emotions and feelings on both sides of the coin. It's one that has got a lot of economic interest and human interest sort of tied up in it. There are people on both sides of the fence who feel very strongly about whether the dam should or shouldn't be built, and that ties into larger issues. This is one thing that we as a group need to think about when we frame our questions and when we talk to people, and think about the Mary Anderson and do no harm, and think about the very effect that we have just by being in this room and asking somebody from who's formerly of EGAT to come up here, or the very effect that we have by being in a village and telling those people that we're there to talk about the dam. Even if we never open our mouths, that we're making a political statement right then and there. And I think it's important for us to try to be, as much as we can, sensitive to people who may have different viewpoints than us. Because you'll see a lot more of that when we get to Salween. You'll see a host or a collection of business owners who will be all in favor of the dam. And they won't care a whole lot about human rights, or they won't care a whole lot about the people that it's displacing, or they won't have a whole lot of concern for the political issues inside Burma. And so we have the advantage of being shuttling back and forth between both groups and hearing the ecological side of it, hearing what kind of environmental destruction it's going to cause, understanding the real, I won't say esoteric, but the real a higher plane understanding of how it connects to what's happening with repression inside of it. We have all that because that's what you guys are getting in the field study. Not everybody does, so be aware of that when you go and interact with people, and be aware of the perspectives that people are coming from, and appreciate and respect those. Because it's important, and we need to be sort of as impartial as we can, and also to realize that we're not, as hard as it may seem, in this particular kind of artificial intellectual vacuum that we're in right now, we're not really here to take sides as to whether the dam is or isn't a good thing. We're here to understand the perspectives of all the stakeholders. As Dennis McMahon, who's one of our alumni, one of our alumni from the last program, said, it's when you study an issue as visceral, as emotional as this, it's hard not to move from the perspective of a researcher, or from someone who's studying the case, to an activist, because all of the group, all of you guys from the last batch, all they wanted to do after they had finished collecting all the data and doing all the interviews was to develop some kind of project to help fight against the dam. I mean, they felt very strongly about that, and so that's kind of a tension that we'll have as the field study goes on, and that's something that we should try to be aware of in all of our interactions with all of the people that we're going to meet. So that's just kind of food for thought. And again, the village is going to be sort of more of that again tomorrow. Those of you who've done village-based interviews or participatory research will be sort of aware of some of the issues that we're going to face tomorrow. The gentleman that came here today was, I think, from the speech that I heard of him, he was exceptionally open in what he talked about, even as a former government official, understanding that he doesn't represent EGAT, he doesn't represent the government of Thailand or the Ministry of Energy, and that he's just a person, really, with a lot of knowledge. And I think we're lucky to get him, because it's difficult, if not impossible, to get people who are currently in present Thai government when they understand what it is that we're doing. When we go to the Thai government and say, oh, we're studying the issue, we're a Peace and Conflict Study Center, we'd like to know what EGAT thinks. All the people in EGAT put their phones on hold and run off to lunch. And nobody returns our call, because nobody wants to be put in, what they perceive to be maybe the line of fire. And so this guy, I think, did a lot to come and talk to us. And last time we had someone who promised to come talk to us from EGAT, and the last minute said, oh, you know what, I'm just kidding. I'm really not going to come and talk to you. So there is a certain, you guys can be an intimidating bunch, because you have a lot of professional experience and expertise, and you have a lot of very, very good questions to ask, even for some of the lectures that come to this course. And so I think it's helpful to realize and to think, to keep in mind, to bear in mind the perspectives, the interests of all the people who come and talk to you, the interest of the people who talked this morning. What are their interests in the conflict, and what are their positions, and what are their interests? In other words, to look outside the box instead of just taking the information for what it is, to step out of that and say, well, why do they hold this position? What are their interests that lie behind that? Because that's kind of a meta-analysis that should inform everything we do. And to also be aware that, as I said, people just have different perspectives. And that's especially true when we go into the village tomorrow. A lot of the information and the knowledge and the readings that you have access to, these villagers will never have seen or been exposed to. and just be aware of that when you frame your questions and when you think about, coming in and asking very detailed and specific and technical questions about, displacement and compensation and remuneration. They may or may not have connection with that, because they may or may not have had exposure to that. So that's something to really, really keep in mind. And those of you, hopefully, that have had experience doing these kinds of interviews will sort of understand what that's like. And I think Keisha had a very good important point to make, which is that yesterday, which is that you don't take this manual from the World Commission on Dams and turn to page 4, the one that Trimbach was saying, and look at question number 1, which says, what is your estimation of the remuneration package from the government? What kind of order it's going to displace? And that's not necessarily a question that's a good opener, a good starter. I mean, a nice opening question might be, who are you and what do you do? And what is your means of livelihood? Those are really valuable kind of climbing up the curve of building mutual trust and getting to know each other, and like really getting the villagers to sort of respect you and to value who you are, so that they'll actually share information with you. Because if they don't really have some kind of trust or confidence in you, they don't have any. There's no real reason for them to tell you their story. So that's something that you have to build up, and that can be built up by very easy questions that have nothing to do with the conflict.